the Starlink and stuff like that, where people are talking about how it's ruining images and stuff like that. I haven't had any issues. If they keep adding thousands and thousands like they're talking, then yeah, at some point it's going to be a problem. Still concerned with it and where it's headed and what it means for the hobby and even the connection that people have with the night sky in general. That goes back thousands of years, the night sky, and people looking up and having a connection to it. And it's something I think that would be very terrible to lose. And I think we're headed in that direction with not only with satellites, but just light pollution in general on the ground. That's a terrible thing. And I would hate to see that happen. Luckily, in my time, I'll still have the night sky, but I don't know about future generations, whether they're going to be able to, go outside and look up and see it like I did, experience it and feel the awe and the wonder that I do when I look up at it.
Everyone, welcome to another Entering into Space podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Miller, and tonight's guest is Shawn Nielson. I would consider Shawn to be an ambassador of this hobby. He has been and is a tremendous resource for PixInsight processing, general processing, and image capturing gear over at his YouTube channel, Visible Dark. And I would like to begin this program tonight with a personal thank you for all of his efforts to pay it forward in this hobby of astrophotography. As a reminder, if you want to listen to the podcast version of this interview, you can head on over to any of the major podcast suppliers or check out the link in the description below to my Buzzsprout account. So tonight, Astro Freaks, I give you Shawn Nielson. So Shawn Nielson, man, I really appreciate you coming on and being a part of this. It's been a lot of fun and glad you decided to join on. So how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Doing good. Like I said, like we were talking, I got my flats done, so I'm really happy about that because it's always a stressful moment for some reason. My wife sort of shakes her head, sees me running back and forth to the telescope like a crazy man, cursing and swearing.
So are you imaging currently at this moment?
Not at the moment. No, I have it set. I've got everything pre-programmed, so I want to collect some more data on the Christmas tree cluster.
Cool.
I'm shooting that area with the Starfield optics 8-inch and at f3. So it's it's a light collecting beast. So it really captures a lot of detail fast. I found that by switching to this setup, I was using refractors. I originally used newts actually, but I switched to refractors and I used them for years and years and all sorts of different ones, different varying qualities, different price tags attached to them. And I enjoyed it. It was certainly easy to do. Refractors are really easy to work with. But I went back to the reflector side of it, the newt side, and got the Nexus reducer corrector. And that I brought it down from f4 to f3. And I got to tell you, I'm loving it. Like the results I'm getting it not only cuts down on the amount of time that I have to put in to imaging objects. Usually I'd have to do 20, 30 hours with a refractor, but now I'm only doing about 10 hours or less on these objects, and I'm getting results that are superior to the refractors. So I might actually stick with the refractor for a while. The only reason I'm not using a refractor sometimes right now is because I'm testing that new Starfield 60 millimeter Petzval refractor that was just out.
I saw that.
Yeah, I've got the one I've got is number 3 in the manufacturing process. So it was one of the first.
I'm not going to ask how you pulled that off. Yeah, we don't want to.
Well, it's who you know, right? That's all.
Yeah, it's who you know. So part of this podcast is, and it may be tough for you because you've been doing this so long, and I'll ask you about how long you've been doing this, but I remember that moment when I went from knowing a little bit about what's up there to, oh my God, I could take a picture of this. And then that discovery of there's more than the Orion Nebula, there's more than the Andromeda Galaxy, there's more. So take me back to that first moments where you went from not really doing this to.
It actually goes back. It goes back quite a ways. Actually, my interest and experience in astrophotography actually goes back about 40 years now, almost 40 years when I was a teenager. And I started out with imaging there was no computers, there was no computer control, there was no auto guiding, there was no PhD2 or anything like that. I was basically I was probably doing it the most difficult way, but I was using a 14.5-inch reflector that I put together
Oh my
myself.
gosh.
And I would sit on a ladder at an eyepiece I could look through an illuminated reticle, and I would use a little joysticks. It was a little Meade joystick that I used, and I could basically, do north, south, east, west corrections. And I'd literally have to sit there and monitor the guide star and try and keep it centered in the crosshair. And it was next to impossible. Just couldn't do it. It didn't work. But I mean, I still got some images. Not that they were great, but I was thrilled and I was really hooked on it. There's some people that are visual. There's some people that are into the astrophotography side of it. I'm more into the astrophotography side. I was never really thrilled with the visual side of it, except for looking at the moon and the planets and stuff. That was about the extent of that. So I dived right into the photography side of it. And that's where it all began, was back as a teenager. So I was using hypersensitized film. I can't remember, it was a TechPan 24 or something. I can't remember what it was called, but and I used a Jack Newton cold camera. So this was a really interesting camera in the sense it was cooled at the time, but it was cooled by dry ice. You had to pack it with dry ice in order to cool the film. So it was a really interesting way to get started in astrophotography. And then I progressed to different telescopes and whatnot, and stuck a DSLR camera on the back and stuff like that, and started taking some images. But I was doing it again. I probably did it the wrong way. I was doing it with an SCT at f10 that was in alt-az mode, and so no equatorial aspect to it. And I was using a timer remote, taking 30-second images and just sort of hoping for the best. And I got some interesting results from it. I was able to shoot some different targets. I remember my first time shooting Andromeda, I got a total of it was a whopping 8 minutes of total exposure time. And that's amazing. I was thrilled with the result, but I was also disappointed. I was sort of wondering why it didn't look like the pictures I saw. And I didn't realize that you needed more time than 8 minutes, right? I thought 8 minutes was, hey, I got 8 minutes, so I should have really an awesome photo, right? But it wasn't like that. So
now, was that one 8-minute shot, or was that?
No, that was a bunch of 30-second shots that I put together. Yeah, it was basically that was one of my first first time sort of getting into the processing of things in Photoshop and whatnot. Before that, I was just taking images, and I was actually, when it was on film, I actually had a little dark room in the basement, and I would go down and print these photos and stuff like that. But later on, I went to the digital side of it a bit more and was doing processing in Photoshop. That's where I got my start. And I lived in Photoshop for a long time. It was only maybe about 2017 that I had taken my first attempt at processing using PixInsight. And PixInsight was a lot different back then. It was a little more antiquated than it is now. It's really come a long way in its development. But I remember when I first started using PixInsight, and I hated it. I just couldn't understand. I couldn't wrap my head around it at all. Like all the terminology and what to do. I just wanted to process my image, and I didn't know how to do it. So it took a while. Go ahead.
I was going to say, those early videos that I watched that showed people just using the STF. And then you drag that icon over. And you set your image to the STF. And I was like, ugh. That's terrible.
And
what a way running back to Photoshop.
Well, that's basically what happened to me. I tried PixInsight. I really did try to understand it, but it was really difficult. And I went back to Photoshop. I went back to Photoshop for about a year before I went and tried PixInsight again. And then I sort of made it was Ron Breacher that introduced me to PixInsight, and he sort of he took to it pretty fast, and he sort of walked me through a processing workflow one day when I was over at his house and visiting, and he walked me through in that. And I said, okay, all right, I'm sort of getting it. So I went and tried it again, and I just sort of stuck with it and got more proficient with it and whatnot. But I still found it challenging to use. Things that I could do in Photoshop, I couldn't do in PixInsight necessarily, and it was a lot more difficult. Masks, as an example, were a lot easier to do in Photoshops than in PixInsight. So it was a bit of a bit of a uphill battle in terms of things like that, but I eventually conquered it and got proficient enough with PixInsight that I could actually start showing other people how to use it. And
Yeah. Do you
that's
still go back and forth?
What's that? Do I
You
still go back and forth? No, I don't actually. Everything is done in PixInsight. I don't use Photoshop for any of the astronomy stuff at all, any of the astrophotography.
Wow.
So yeah, it's all done in PixInsight at this point. I feel like I can't, go into Photoshop. I feel like I'm doing something and doing an injustice to PixInsight if I take that image that I processed in PixInsight and then run it over to Photoshop to do some final tweaks on it. It would be easy to do. And Photoshop, especially the camera raw feature in Photoshop, that's got some, there's a lot of capability there, but I just feel I'm just doing a disservice to PixInsight if I do that. It's not true PixInsight, processing if I flip over to Photoshop or something like that. So
there's just I still like that organic. PixInsight is very mathematical, as you well know.
It is.
There's a lot to me, especially now. I feel like I do more waiting on a process to run. Especially like with Russell Croman and his witchery voodoo stuff that he has out now.
Yeah, I know.
But
damn
him. Damn him. But I still like that organic kind of feel that you get with Photoshop in some areas. And I'm talking maybe most of my image, the last 5% is Photoshop. Well, and there's sometimes where I bring it back out of Photoshop. I mean, no lie, I'll bring it back out of Photoshop, bring it back into PixInsight, and I'll look at the two version, and I'll just delete the Photoshop one. That happens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, PixInsight is definitely more mathematical, and they didn't want to go down the road of Photoshop in some ways too. They didn't feel it was true to the astrophotography aspect in the image processing. So I know Juan, he didn't want to go down that Photoshop. There was people years ago asking, can we, incorporate some things that were similar to Photoshop in that, and he didn't want to do that. So it's definitely more mathematical. I'm more artistic, so I can relate to Photoshop easier than I can something like PixInsight. But once you understand it, once you get a basic understanding and a workflow, getting a workflow is really important in PixInsight. If you don't have an understanding of a workflow, you're really lost at that point, right? So that's what I find I'm teaching when I'm teaching PixInsight to people that are starting out using it and don't know how to use it. I getting them into a workflow, getting them into that thinking of a workflow and what they have to do, looking at their image and what steps they have to take in order to process it properly. So yeah.
So what's your skies like? Where you from? What kind of shooting location? Are you in an observatory? I think I've seen something, or you just have
no observatory. Unfortunately, I'm on the outskirts of Kitchener in Ontario, Canada, and it's about it depends which way I'm shooting, which way I'm pointed. I go from a Bortle 8 to a Bortle 6 roughly.
Oh wow.
So Bortle 8, if I'm in the northeast, that's pointing towards the city center. If I'm overhead, I get into that Bortle 7, Bortle 6, and maybe it's even a little better in the southwest where there's more rural country there. There's more farmland in that, so there isn't a lot of light pollution. But I mean, back in the 80s when I was doing my astronomy stuff and doing astrophotography, I could see the Milky Way from Kitchener, Waterloo side. The two cities are side by side, and I grew up in Waterloo, but I live in Kitchener now. But, so I made the big trip over the line. But I could see the Milky Way, and I was really shocked. I think it was 2008 when I sort of realized that I couldn't actually see the Milky Way anymore from the city.
Oh wow.
And I was on the outskirts of the city. I wasn't even in the city, like in the city center. I was on the outskirts and I couldn't see the Milky Way. So I was like really disappointed with that. And that led me into getting more involved with light pollution abatement, doing work on that level and trying to affect some sort of change. And I spent the better part of a decade doing that here, working with various levels of the government basically that exists and the officials and whatnot trying to get some changes made. I made a little bit of progress, but over the 10 years, it didn't really, it's almost, I hate to say it, but it's almost a losing battle just because of the rate of growth. Population increasing, we get more houses, we get more lighting, we get more businesses, we get more lighting, we get more streets, we get more lighting. It almost seems impossible to fight, to push back against it.
Even if Elon Musk said we're running out of people, so maybe that's
I don't know about that, but I'm not sure about that.
I was like, he clearly has not been to Orlando.
No doubt. So but it led. I did light pollution for, like I said, a decade and that, and I made a little bit of progress, but it was very stressful, and I ended up sort of pulling back from it a bit and just trying to enjoy the night sky again and whatnot. And then I started a YouTube channel, which became a whole new kind of stress. But tell
me about it.
Yeah. So when I first started out, it was great. There was, I was doing okay, but it got more and more stressful as things grew and there was more demands on me and that. So, but one of the reasons I started the YouTube channel was to sort of give back, because when I got into astrophotography as a teenager, there was no one around that could help me. I was just basically reading books that that were there and sort of gave me some sort of glimmer of hope as to how to do something. But later on, there was people that I would meet through astronomy clubs and whatnot. And they gave me inspiration, first of all, because they helped me understand some of the terminology and some of the things I need to do. I had no idea at one point what a flat was or what a dark was. I was just taking pictures and that was it. That was the extent of it, right? So I had people that were instrumental in helping me in that regard. And I wanted to give back to the community a bit. And one of the ways I could do that was to start a YouTube channel. Now, what no one knows is that I actually had thought about it in 2013, starting a YouTube channel, but I didn't. I actually didn't do it because I didn't like being on camera. I was actually scared to be on camera. I didn't want to go out in the world like that, right? So I had a website that I started called Ontario Stargazing, and it no longer exists, but that's sort of where I started doing my outreach and posting articles about astrophotography and different objects I was shooting and whatnot. But it didn't really take off the way I wanted it to. So it would be many more years. It wasn't until 2019 that I actually garnered the courage to put myself in front of the camera and actually start doing the YouTube side of it. I just wish I had done it back in 2013, because I would have been big like Trevor, at this point. Because there was very little. It just wasn't really being done. It was. It's really just seen an explosive growth in the last 2 or 3 years on YouTube, where there's so many astro channels now. It's mind-boggling actually how it's growing. Really, really interesting to see. But there's a lot of overlap too that occurs in that sense, because people are doing similar things and talking about similar things and whatnot. So it's interesting to see where it's going and who will survive in this, in the end. Will be interesting to see too. But
that's the thing when you start something like this. It's like the podcast. They always go, well, you're going to do this for the first few episodes and then you're going to have that same drop off.
Yes.
And it is hard. It's hard because, I get these and I have to sit and edit them, and YouTube videos are tough. I would tell a lot of people, to me, I would rather image than create a video of imaging, because it's, because, like I was saying, you don't know how many times I've gone out there and I don't know about you, but I just kind of pluck it out of my head. I really don't script it a lot. And I'm out there just doing this because I never turned the microphone on. It's so devastating. Or something stupid like that. But I enjoy it. I started it out of sheer frustration. That's how I started YouTube.
Is that right? Okay.
I was just, because people were just going so fast, and I was like, slow down.
I've had a mixture of people. Some people really like my teaching style and can relate to it and follow it. And I've had a few people that say I go too fast. And I'm like, I'm not sure I can slow it down any more than what I'm doing.
Just be yourself.
Like, I mean, I just, I have to be myself. Right. So
what's like some of the best comments you get on your videos? Like what's something that you just like, hell yeah, I love that.
Well, I just like when people in general take the time to comment. Actually, what
Mhm.
really gets me is when they comment, and I know that they've actually watched to the end of the video. That's
Yeah.
really interesting to me because it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I actually copied what you had done in the one video, which I thought was funny. You did you asked at the end of the video to give a woot woot out
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
comments.
yeah,
I tried that in the video
yeah.
just to see how many people would actually respond, and I was actually really surprised at how many people
Yeah.
responded. I
I couldn't
because
believe it. Yeah.
if you look at the analytics for the
Yeah.
videos, it's interesting to see the drop off and the view duration and stuff like that, and it
Yeah.
it's sort of it almost doesn't make sense in some ways when I look at the analytics and
Mhm.
then compare it to the responses I get in comments and stuff and how many people are actually watching to the end. So I'm not sure where the disconnect is with the analytics, but the analytics show an average of maybe even on longer videos, like one of my recent ones was 17 minutes long, and the average view duration is less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But there's people that
Yeah.
are watching to the end because they're commenting on something that was at the end of that video. And the
Mhm.
only way they would have known would be to watch to the end or skip to the end, I guess. But if they skip to
Yeah.
the end, they miss the parts in between.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
really
yeah,
help them.
yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah, I learned the other day. I thought I have 210,000 impressions. Wow! And then I
yeah,
learned
that's
that's a
awesome.
bad thing. That's a bad no. So an
Well,
impression I finally learned is like when they see your video, but they don't click
they
on it.
don't click on it. Yeah,
So
exactly.
they
Yep.
scroll past it,
Yep.
and I'm like, "Wait, that sucks."
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
so it
Well,
was so devastating.
yeah, no, and I understand that. I can relate to it because like
Yeah,
it's taken me 4 years and I'm at 15,000 and I've watched other
yeah,
channels that are doing the same thing and they're like twice as much as me. So it
yeah,
can be a little defeating at times. You kind of wonder, why is no one subscribing and what's going on? Why is it so slow? I've certainly questioned it a few times but really it's the views that you want in the end.
yeah, yeah.
Subscribers is more of a bragging right than anything. It's
Hmm.
the views that you want. If you're getting views, if you're getting thousands of views or tens of thousands of views on your videos, it doesn't really matter how many subscribers you have. It's about the
Yeah,
reach, and because there's a lot of
yeah.
people that don't subscribe too. Like if you look at my analytics for the YouTube channel, it's like I think it's somewhere around 50% or so
Hmm.
are not subscribed that watch the
Yeah,
videos. Yeah. So
yeah,
so
yeah,
technically I should really have 30,000 subscribers if everyone, in an
yeah,
ideal situation if everyone subscribed,
yeah,
right? But they don't. So
yeah.
and
No.
yeah, I got some interesting feedback on that too because I posed that question. I was curious as to, if there was something I was not doing that they wanted to see or whatnot. And there was people that said that they just didn't subscribe because they just didn't want all the notifications. With if they
Oh,
subscribed to
really?
every channel that they wanted to, they'd get all these notifications and stuff, and they didn't want that. So,
Hmm.
and I understand that. I mean, there are.
Yeah.
I got to admit, there's channels I look at that I don't subscribe to. So,
I'm right there with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think it's very common in that, and you can't really focus too much on the subscriber base. I think you got to look at the views and the reach that you're getting in terms of your videos
Yeah.
and those people that you're helping. Help keep it positive. I think knowing that your video is getting out there and that information is getting out there, and that people are being helped on their journey through this astrophotography. Uh, Sometimes nightmare.
Yeah.
you know it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I'm right there with you because I felt like you reach people that maybe watch you and don't connect with me, and that's
Yeah,
fine. That's the
yeah,
way we should be because
and
it,
it
it
does
takes
happen.
all of us.
Yep,
It takes a village, right?
yep,
That's what my mom always said. It
yep,
takes a village.
yep.
But I just enjoyed showing something that I'm excited about
Hmm.
because I've told myself that if I ever got to the point where I wasn't excited about this, I wasn't going to do this anymore.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and that leads me to a question like,
Hmm.
for me, there was that wonderment and excitement of holy crap, all this is new. And I would get this image and and it looked like shit, but who cares? It was an image of space
Yeah.
and you've taken thousands of pictures and so have I. So,
Hmm.
so what are you doing now? Do you feel that that's tapered off? Do you struggle to find that same excitement? Is there something
Um,
else you're doing that that's sparking that?
The spark to it is actually using new equipment, really. Just
Okay.
because the situation that I'm in, where I'm located, I border on a green space with 100-foot trees in the back.
Oh, wow.
So there's a swath of sky from the east to the south that I can never access. There's
Hmm.
no way to do it. The trees are there. I will never be able to image any targets. So like in the summertime when people are imaging M8 and M20, I can't do it. They're behind
Hmm.
trees, and they never emerge to a point that I can even get 15 minutes on them. It just doesn't happen.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
so I tried remote telescope for things like that, just for fun, just to see that.
Hmm.
Or at the time, there was a long time ago, I went out into dark sites and whatnot, and would stay up all night. We'd go out in the evening, and we'd be out there till 5 a.m. kind of thing, and then drive home. But it was sometimes depending on the time of year, it was cold and miserable and whatnot, and you still sat out there. You just bundled up and you sort of made your way through it as
Hmm.
best you could. But those cases there, I could image targets like M8 and M20. But since I stopped doing that, because I found by having I call it a semi-permanent sort of setup, because I don't have an observatory. There's just no place to put an observatory in the backyard that would make sense.
Hmm. Hmm.
I would just lose too much sky. So where I have it right now is on a pier, and everything is, it doesn't move. It stays there. I just cover it up when I'm done.
Okay.
But it actually has enabled me to do more imaging. Even though I have less sky to work with and I have more light pollution, I can get more imaging done because it's ready to go. I can just flip a switch basically and
Yeah,
get
that's
started
nice.
imaging, right? So I can take advantage of clear opportunities that come and go sometimes when we don't necessarily have a clear sky all night, but maybe the evening is clear. I can
Hmm.
get some imaging done and collect some more data on a target that I'm interested in. But yeah, to answer your question, it's really about the at this point, just because I seem to image the same things over and over again every year, but I'm imaging it with different equipment. So I'm getting
Hmm.
the what sort of is the spark for me is being able to image these objects again using totally different equipment and seeing what kind of result I get, if it's better or
Yeah.
if it's worse or what, and even the progression in my own processing skills and techniques. That's come into play over the years. I've something I processed 2 years ago looks completely different than what I
Oh, yeah.
process now, just because not only new tools, but new skills with regards to that processing of the data. So yeah,
So
basic.
what's something that you like got presented with in PixInsight early on or midway, and it just made you want to go back and process everything over again? That's an awesome feeling for me. Does that happen to
Well,
you?
I don't think that anything in particular, aside from Russell Crowe and and his
Yeah.
evil wizardry
Yeah.
there. When Blur Exterminator came out, that was really the tipping point for me in terms of going back to
Okay.
reprocessing data, just because of its capabilities and what it could do.
Hmm.
I was really blown away. It was more expensive than his other add-ons for
Hmm.
PixInsight, but as soon as I tried it, like it was literally instant. I had downloaded the trial and gave it a whirl on an object. I don't remember which one, but it was just night and day. I think it was actually M20. I think it was M20 data that I had taken with a remote telescope in Australia, if I'm not mistaken, and the core, the dark structure within the center there, it was just popping into focus with Blur
Yeah.
Exterminator. It was like night and day. I was like, wow, this is
Yeah.
crazy. Like, what is
Yeah.
this? This is evil. What is this?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
it led me to go back and reprocess all sorts of data. I was just having a field day, and it was a great
Oh,
opportunity to
yeah.
do it because it was cloudy season anyway. So I had nothing else
Yeah.
to do. Right. So
Yeah.
I think Blur Exterminator was a turning point for me, where I had to go back and reprocess everything. And then, of course, including his star exterminator and his noise exterminator. I mean, that's just incredible, just so powerful.
Yeah.
And even the noise
Oh, yeah.
exterminator, it really cuts down on processing time, and the technical aspect that used to be for processing, doing noise reduction in PixInsight. It was rather tedious to go through. And I know when I got to it, I just hated it. It was like, oh, not this again. I almost couldn't stomach it. It was that bad. But then, Russ came out with Noise Exterminator, and I tried it, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? Like, wow.
Yeah.
Like I was just blown away. All I had to do was drag and drop, and that was it, and it took care of it. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. So he had my money. He had it before I even knew he had it.
Yeah. I was just trying to think, like WVPP was a big one for me.
Yes.
Because I was using DSS and I would get mixed results with that. And the first time it actually wasn't, it was just the batch preprocessing script.
Yep.
And I stacked everything and my flats were calibrated right. I didn't have those big blown out halos from overcorrection, and I went, and I could definitely see the same data was just stacked better.
Yeah.
And that made me want to go back, which takes a long time. Obviously it's not just a processing thing. That's an integration thing, but that was one of the big ones for me. Once I learned, because I literally somewhere around here, I don't have it on hand, but I have a notebook I made for every manual step, wrote every step down for manually stacking, calibrating, and integrating in PixInsight. And I would go through that. And I'm talking, by the time I was done with that, I hated it. I didn't want to deal with that image. I was sick of that image, right? I damn sure didn't want to process it or spend all day integrating it.
Yeah.
But that was one of those things that really was a big turning point.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually interesting talking about Deep Sky Stacker and stuff, because I used that years ago before PixInsight. When I was doing Photoshop work and whatnot, I would use DSS, and that was my go-to. And it was, it did do its job for the most part. It was free, so it was great. That was a bonus. I was using Nebulosity. I don't know if you know that software. Nebulosity. I was using that way back in the day for doing the acquisition and whatnot. And then I would use Deep Sky Stacker to calibrate and stack the data, and then I bring it into Photoshop and work what I thought was magic at the time, which was even though I look back and I sort of cringe at some of the images. I'm like, oh, that's not that great, but at the time it was just incredible just to see that, just the fact that I captured something in deep space like that, hundreds of light years, thousands of light years, millions of light years away, it's just incredible. So, but what I find funny now is I sort of I tried getting into planetary a little bit just to see what it was like. That's a completely different beast in terms of between deep sky imaging and planetary, two totally different things. And it's really funny because I can capture a nebula or a galaxy that's millions of light years away, but I can't take a picture of Jupiter or Saturn to save my life.
Right.
It was just, oh wow, I was so frustrated with it. I just basically said, forget this. I'm going back to deep sky. I'll leave it to someone else to take those amazing pictures.
Just take a page out of your PixInsight book. Remember how much you hated that?
I know. It didn't quite work like that though. Yeah. I don't mind visually looking at the planets, but in terms of taking photos of them, I just can't do it. Tough. Yeah, it is tough. Yeah. It's a very, you have to be very talented, very skilled to do that. Just like you would take in deep sky images too. There's a level of skill and knowledge that's required. But planetary is a different beast entirely, and never really took to it. So
I've discovered, because I made the switch, and I'm going to ask you this question here in a minute too. I made the switch over to the ASI Air. Love them, have two. Yeah, there's a couple of quirky things. I wish I could wring their neck, but that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, but I discovered that you can do planetary imaging in it, and it will take the videos, it stacks in the program, and puts out an amazing image. I actually did a 1 minute each red, blue, green of the moon the other day, and it was super easy. It was all done right there and that's I went, nice. Okay, now this might make sense.
I didn't know that. I didn't know the EIS could do that.
Great.
Yeah, that's actually
so. What's your evolution in image capturing? Where did it start for software, and where is it now?
Well, it started, like I said, back early on using nebulosity for the image capturing, the acquisition side of it.
Okay.
That's where I really started getting serious again into it. There
Mm-hmm.
was a gap. There was a gap in my astrophotography journey. So I started out in my teenage years doing it, and when I got into my 20s, I sort of drifted off a little bit. I got a little sidetracked with partying and girls and things like that.
No, get
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
here. Stop
Yeah,
that.
I know,
Nah. Fake news. Fake news.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a gap where I didn't really do anything, and when I started getting back into it again, I really didn't really know what to do, but I had some friends, like I said, that that I'd met, and they sort of guided me a bit, and I got nebulosity and started doing acquisition with that, and using. I eventually got into guiding using PhD at the time. And that was because of another friend that was using PhD, and I was like just amazed. I was like, "Wow, you're auto guiding. This is really cool. What is this? How do I do that?" Right?
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm walking around his scope talking about, and he's looking at the graph, moving, and he's saying,
Yeah.
"Stop walking, stop walking." But you're vibrating my scope.
Yeah.
So
stop it, Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. But so that's where I got my start, and it just naturally. I used that for years, many years. I used nebulosity in
Really?
that. Yeah. I was using. I was actually a slow. I was slow to migrate to CCD or even CMOS. I used DSLR and nebulosity for a long time. I would say up until almost 2014, 2015, I was using a DSLR camera. I just got good results with it. But then I wet my feet in CCD using an SBIG 8300. It was an SBIG 8300 with a FLI filter wheel. I had borrowed it just to try and stuff. Someone was nice enough to let me use it. It was a club. I can't remember what club it was, but some astronomy club. Anyway, they had some gear in that you could, borrow and use in that. So I borrowed it, and
Cool.
I tried it here at home, and I got hooked on that. I was like, wow, this is really interesting. It was more complicated, a little more difficult, but it was very interesting to me to use a cooled camera, a dedicated astronomy camera, versus what I was doing. The results were quite different. So that led me into the CCD camera side of things, and I eventually got a Moravian 16200 enhanced cooled CCD camera, and I used that for a couple years before entering into the CMOS camera. One of my first CMOS cameras actually was the ASI 1600 Pro. That was my first time using and I mean, that camera was good and it was bad. There, it had micro lensing problems and whatnot, which which I didn't understand at first what was happening. I was looking at my stars. I'm like, what's wrong with my stars? Like, this looks really weird. I didn't even know what micro lensing was at the time. But that was my first camera, CMOS camera, and then I ended up getting what was the next one I got after that? I ended up moving over to the QHY cameras, and I got a 168C actually at the time was the camera that I got, and I was doing one shot color for a number of years. I sort of went back to one shot color. It was easier and not as complicated. But now I'm totally into monochrome imaging. I still can do one shot color, and but I don't like it. I don't like the results. I just find that the monochrome results are far superior. So I've really gone headlong into monochrome imaging at this point, and I sort of tell people, if you're going to get into the hobby, and that one shot color is an easy way to do it, of course. But if you're going to take the time to learn all this and spend all the money, just jump right into monochrome and get it over with. Might as well rip the bandage off as quick as you can, basically.
So that's a question. So if somebody's starting out and they say, hey, they come to you and they've got a couple $1,000 and they want to get started, what scope would you build? What kind of rig would you build for them?
For a couple thousand?
This is gonna a couple thousand, and the caveat to this is, you don't want them to just get so frustrated with the technical. You want them to really appreciate it and have fun first, and then build on.
And this is where
build that rig.
Yeah, this is.
And I know a couple thousand is not much, but I'm These are the parameters, man.
Yeah,
Just do it.
yeah. No, a couple thousand is a little tough to do, but
Yeah.
there are things that you do. What I would, as scary as people, as scary as a Newtonian reflector can be for imaging, I would have no problems recommending like a 6-inch Newtonian or an 8-inch Newtonian to start with on. On a mount, I'm not even sure really what mount you could get that would work that well. A mount is really crucial, right? A lot of people,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. You could have the most expensive telescope and best camera in the world, but if it's on a crappy mount, well, it's not going to work. Your results aren't going to be very good. So, I would probably realistically, for a couple grand or less in that aspect, I would probably be steering them more towards a small, a small setup with a tracker maybe or something like that, like the Sky Hunter or even the Skywatcher GTI or something like that as a mount, and then they could put a camera and a lens on it and start learning to take images that way, I suppose. But I would have to be realistic with them too and tell them, look, you know what, it's going to cost more money than $2,000 to really get into this and find that you enjoy it. Sure, there's going to be more technical aspects that come with a more expensive setup, but I think if you're going to put the money out and you're going to, test the water, so to speak, I think you should just jump right in. It's sort of like, I always think of Nina, where a lot of people use the simple sequencer in Nina.
That was me.
Yeah. Get out of it. Jump right in. Get into the advanced sequencer. It was complicated, but the only way to do it is to just get in there and start doing it, right? And
I hear that, but I don't know about you. Still to this day, I feel pressure. And I don't know where it comes from, but if I got clear skies, a lot of people say, "Hey, just take some time, go out there and tweak your guiding and maybe just your collimation and really work on it. Just spend the night doing that." I'm like, no, I feel like it's almost a job.
Yeah,
like I have to clock in and be imaging and to say.
I know the feeling. Yeah. I usually save the tweaking for around full moon because it's always clear around full moon for some reason.
For some reason.
I don't know why that is, but
that's probably Russell Crowe's fault too.
Yeah, maybe we'll just blame him anyways. Blaming him for everything else. So,
there you go.
But I leave the tweaking for full moon time because you can do some narrowband work at full moon, but it's even impacted to some degree by the moonlight. So you're not getting your best results. So I leave any tweaking that I have to do until that point, and then I take care of it. Then I don't feel so bad. Then I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. So I'm sort of in that position, just tonight here because I had to decide am I imaging with the 8-inch or am I imaging with the new 60 millimeter, right? And the 60 millimeter it only has the one-shot color hooked up to it right now with an Optolong L Ultimate, so it has its capabilities. But with the moon, being out of the way, I really wanted to get some data with the 8-inch again and finish some projects that are ongoing because the seasons are changing, right? And we're losing some of these objects that winter targets. And I don't end up actually being able to shoot the winter targets until like Orion, when people are shooting Orion in the fall, as example, I have to wait till late February or March in order to shoot Orion just because of trees.
Oh, wow.
So I don't, so now is my time to shoot these targets. And I just want to take advantage of that as much as I can.
You were talking about the not being able to see the Milky Way.
Yeah.
And have you noticed over the years, because I have, and I haven't been doing this as long as you have, but have you noticed the amount of geosatellites that have increased in that latitude?
Through Orion? I notice. I've always noticed that there's a lot of satellites in Orion, that area of the sky for sure. I also find there's a lot of satellites in the Iris Nebula area as well. If you're imaging that for an extended period of time, you'll notice how many satellite trails you get through it. I haven't really paid much attention to it, to be honest with you. I just sort of accept, what it is. And I haven't really had an impact like, the Starlink and stuff like that, where people are talking about how it's ruining images and stuff like that. I actually haven't had that happen. I haven't had any Starlink and it's passed over and that I haven't, been pointed in that direction, I guess. But I haven't had any issues, but even if they did, at this point, it's still manageable. You can, delete those frames, or, maybe possibly the algorithm, the pixel rejection can, do some magic and remove it. But, the reality is right now we can still sort of manage, we can still function to some degree. If they keep adding thousands and thousands like they're talking, then yeah, at some point it's going to be a problem. But for me right now, I'm not really too impacted by it. So still concerned with it and where it's headed and what it means for the hobby, and even the connection that people have with the night sky in general. That goes back thousands of years, the night sky, and people looking up and having a connection to it. And it's something I think that would be very terrible to lose. And I think we're headed in that direction with not only with satellites, but just light pollution in general on the ground. We're headed in that direction where we're going to lose the night sky at some point, and that's really that's a terrible thing, and I would hate to see that happen. But it'll won't be. Luckily, in my time, I'll still have the night sky, but I don't know about future generations whether they're going to be able to go outside and look up and see it like I did. Experience it and feel the awe and the wonder that I do when I look up at it.
Yeah. So what's the darkest skies you've ever shot in?
Probably up at our cottage actually is the darkest, which would be a Bortle 2 up there. So, yeah, like that's you amazing. Can see thousands of stars before, twilight is even over. It's just crazy up there. And the Milky Way literally glows in the night sky. It's not just something that you see. It actually is like a glowing cloud up there. Really, really incredible. There's so many stars, and it's so dark. But even light pollution is creeping in there a little bit over the decades. Like we've had the cottage for 30 years now, more than 30 years. And I've seen it. I've seen the light domes from various small towns around getting larger and larger. And, luckily it's still, and it will be, in my lifetime anyways, it'll probably still be that Bortle 2 or Bortle 3 maybe. So I'll be lucky in that sense, but even that's being encroached on and with light pollution, and will eventually, I think, succumb to that problem. But for now, that's the darkest skies. The only problem I have is I sort of, when I went more semi-permanent and doing my imaging from home, I ended up not really having a portable or a mobile rig that I could move around and take images with. So I'm sort of trying to get back into that, where I'm going to have a small refractor with I got the 268C camera QHY that I'll use, and I can shoot broadband easily enough up at the cottage and get some fabulous, just amazing results, just because the skies are so dark up there compared to what I can do here in the city, just night and day. But I'm going to try and get to that anyways, build up towards that for this summer, and do more imaging from up there if I can. If I can, if the mosquitoes don't pick me up and carry me away, that is. there are big ones up there, and there's a lot of them.
I was surprised because I've been up in New Hampshire and Maine and all that. And man, I thought Florida had mosquitoes. Good grief! Like I was like, oh, no mosquitoes, and one landed on me up there, and I flicked it off, and I heard it hit the ground. I was like, good.
Yeah, you can actually, when you're up at the cottage and you're in the backyard part, you can actually hear above you. You can hear the humming sound, and it's all the mosquitoes that are there, and that. So you basically get attacked. If you wait till after 11 p.m., it's not so bad. But anytime between sunset and 11 p.m. there, it's just you almost have to go inside. You can't. So I want to have this set up where I can actually control it from inside the cottage for the most part. I'll have to run out and turn things on and get it sort of going. But other than that, I can get into the cottage and sort of stay away from the mosquitoes and image for the night, and maybe avoid some bears too.
Oh yeah, no, that's not good. We don't talk about bears on this
No.
channel.
I've never actually.
Yeah.
I've seen presence of bears in the cottage area, and there's
Yeah,
people that have seen them. But in the 30
yeah.
years, I've never seen a live bear up there. Just
Oh
evidence
wow,
that they're around. So I'm always
just the
leery when I
evidence.
go
That's
out at
enough.
night, with the flashlight and stuff. I'm always
Yeah,
looking around and listening and getting freaked out and stuff and whatnot. So because it's a different environment. It's not like back in the city where you feel a little more safe, in
yeah,
terms of
yeah.
wildlife, anyways.
In terms of wildlife,
Yeah.
you probably got less to worry about up there anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
in
and
terms of the
that's
city,
the reality of it too. Actually, the cottage is actually probably a lot safer, really,
yeah,
than the city is. But it doesn't feel
yeah.
like that when you get into that into the dark, and you get into real darkness. Anyways, darkness
Oh
where
yeah.
you can't even see your hand in front of you. That's a
Wow.
totally different situation. So
Yeah, yeah. Funny story. I have some lease property in Tallahassee, and it's Portal 4,
yeah,
3-ish, 4-ish.
yeah,
And I thought, because I used to get down on my knee and look through a polar scope and polar align,
yeah,
and everything is very manual when I first started.
hmm
No plate solving. I did it all star hopping, and so I thought, oh, I'm an expert. I used to do that in the backyard. There were so many stars, I couldn't find Polaris because
yeah,
now there's so few stars. I'm like, well,
yeah,
that's Polaris.
yeah.
But there were so many. I was
You
like,
couldn't
well,
tell.
which one's Polaris?
Yeah,
And I didn't. There was no electronics to help me, and
yeah,
I sat out there. I was so miserable and so frustrated, and I was like, I thought I was awesome.
yeah.
I am not. I don't know. Like, it just blew me away.
Yeah.
All the stars up
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It can. Yeah,
so
yeah, I've certainly experienced that being up there. Luckily, up at our cottage there, I sort of know where Polaris is, so it's easy to find amongst
yeah.
all the stars. But I
Ugh.
mean, I can't see the Little Dipper from here at all,
Yeah.
except for
Oh
Polaris.
wow.
That's the only. But up at the cottage, I can see that constellation completely. I can see the Little Dipper, no problem, or asterism,
Oh
I
wow.
guess I should
Yeah.
say. But
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a completely different situation. But funny stories. Talking about funny stories with Polaris, I remember being out at a dark site, and I was setting up the mount. I was looking through the polar scope. I was trying to find Polaris, and I spent like 15 minutes. I was looking around. I'm like, it's right there. How come I can't find it? I kept moving the mount around and trying and trying and trying,
Yeah.
and I was
Mm-hmm.
getting so frustrated. And I stood up and I sort of paced around a bit, thinking, why? I took a break. I was like, okay, I got to take a break from this because
Oh
I'm
yeah.
just driving
Mm-hmm.
myself batty trying to find Polaris. And then I realized I didn't take the cover off the polar scope. So, so I spent 15 minutes trying to find Polaris with the cover on.
Yeah.
That was a great feeling. I was like, seriously?
Yeah. Hey, at least you didn't find it, because if you would have, I mean, you were
Yeah,
gonna hallucinate and
would,
got
yeah,
bigger problems.
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I used to use Sharp Cap for polar alignment,
Okay.
and
Yep.
that is through your that's through your guide scope.
Yep.
And I've had many a nights where I forgot to take the cap off, and I'm like, I can't. Why won't it solve? What is
Yeah,
going on?
yeah.
I sound like Jerry Seinfeld. I don't get it.
I don't get it. Yeah, yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the amount of times that and I'm sure you relate, USB issues and cable issues, and
Yeah.
I don't understand why computers will work the same way every time, 500 times, and the 501st time it doesn't
work.
Like,
I've had that happen. Yeah, where everything runs great one night and you have a clear night the following night, and you fire everything up and nothing's working. Everything's stopped. Everything's gone to craps for some reason, and you can't figure out. You're trying to that's where I'm running outside, and all you see is a red light moving around outside in the backyard, and it's me scurrying around trying to figure out what's going on, what's happened, trying different connections and different things like that. So yeah, it can be humorous at times, and it can be frustrating. I actually sometimes have thought, in my frustration, I've thought of just chucking the whole thing and taking up Xbox or something like that, because it just seems a lot less stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure your wife has had to endure you ranting about technical issues for 30 minutes.
She just did it tonight.
Look at my guide graph. I don't understand my guide graph. I mean, the RA's fine, but the deck's all jacked up.
When I was,
and my girlfriend's like,
yeah. When I was actually, she just heard me basically muttering to myself, walking through the house from the back a few times, because tonight when I was taking my flats, I actually I did the red, green, and blue first. And then I did the luminance last when it was dark enough, wasn't, as bright. So I get that ADU down, but I did the luminance last, and I had taken my flats, and I came back. I went out to cover the scope to take the flat darks, and I came back in and I clicked cancel by accident, and I was like, oh. I had to like redo all the flats for the luminance. So there I am walking through I was running basically, and I was cursing and swearing and stuff. It was like, come on, this isn't fair.
Yeah.
And she's just looking at me. She's like, really, you got to calm down.
Yeah. No, you don't.
No, I can't. I say, you don't understand how stressful taking flats is. It all has to be, it has to be just right, and it does.
It's got to be just right.
You only have a certain window when you're doing sky flats. There's just a certain window of opportunity, right? And if you mess it up, you got to wait till the next clear night, basically, right? So.
Now, are you taking? Now, here's the thing. I think I shortcut, but do you go to the effort of taking flats after every night and trying to group those together, or you just take one set of flats?
I would drive myself insane if I was doing that. I know people that do that, to take calibration frames every session.
That's off.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I basically build a library and I sort of work with it until I see something change. And then I reshoot. And that's why I had to reshoot flats last night and tonight, was because I saw a new dust spot basically that appeared, and that wasn't there previous. So my flat frames from early March were no longer working properly, and I needed to reshoot them. But yeah, I try to minimize the amount of the amount of times that I take calibration frames, just because I don't like doing it. That's really what it boils down to. I don't like doing it. I just want to image. That's all. I enjoy imaging. I don't want to be bothered with calibration frames and that. So yeah, I try not to take as too many if I don't have to, and work with what I got. And it seems to work out for me anyways.
So targets, is there a popular target that you haven't shot?
Wow, that's a good question. You got me thinking here. What a popular target that I haven't shot? Well, like really with my sky being blocked by trees, there's a whole bunch of stuff between the east and the south that comes up, all year round.
In your skies, is there something that you go, maybe I'll shoot that next year, and then you just haven't got to it yet?
Yeah, I think the one that comes to mind was the dark shark. I actually chased that for years, trying to get a decent image of it. It's a very, it's a dark nebula. It's more challenging than what people. It's not like M31, but M31 people think, oh, it's big and it's bright and it's not a big deal, right? But it actually is more challenging to shoot M31 and process M31 than what people think. But the dark shark was one of those objects that I tried for many years to get an image of, and I just couldn't do it. Everything I took was basically crap, and I was unhappy with it. And I said, I'll come back to it next year. I'll try again and whatnot. And I even tried adding 2 years of data together just to see, and it still was no good. The only time, it was only recently, it was only in the last year that I actually shot it again. I turned the 8-inch at f3 to that and took some data on it. And that was the first time in probably like 5 years or more of chasing it that I got a decent set of data, and I got a really great image out of it. That I was really, very pleased with, actually, compared to the previous time. So yeah, the dark shark is definitely one that is on that list. That was hard to come by, and a challenge for sure. But I mean, like I said, I'm limited in terms of what targets I can shoot, unfortunately, and some of them are very faint. Like I think it was the Bat Nebula. I tried shooting that. A-Bill 85, that was another one. That was it. They're just so faint, even with the 8-inch and the f3 and that. I was just really surprised at how much data it was going to take, and I find that I at least getting older, I don't have the same patience anymore for sitting on a target for 30 hours or 40 hours and collecting data like that. So, but
what's something that you've imaged that you couldn't see anything in the subs, but you just kept on?
Oh, well, that was actually the Flying Bat Nebula was one of them. I can't remember what it's called. Is it called the Flying Bat, or is it called the Bat Nebula?
Yeah.
Or is it or am I thinking of the Dragon? No, it's not that, actually. It's the Dragon. It looks like a dragon, actually.
That's kind of below.
I can't remember what it's. Yeah, I can't remember.
The Flying Dragon.
Flying
It's just the
Dragon.
Flying
Yeah,
Dragon.
yeah.
And it's below the veil, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I took
in that area.
in that area, and I remember taking I took 5-minute and 10-minute subs, and I wasn't seeing anything. I didn't even know if I was on target. Abel 85 actually was similar to that. I had shot 5-minute subs, and there was nothing. Like I had no idea. I just let it run all night, hoping that I was on target. I was trusting the plate solving that it actually plate solved correctly, and I was on target. But I had no idea. It wasn't until I stacked that I could see anything, and even in that wasn't really anything impressive. So I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this project too much. So I think I abandoned it. I still got the data, but I never really did anything with it. So
yeah. So if somebody went into your computer and hacked your computer and took every data, every project out, but left one, and it was the one that you were like, oh my God, at least they didn't take that, what would it be?
It would have to be the Dark Shark. Yeah, that one. I chased that for so many years. I tried so hard, and it just came together. It finally came together. And the image, it was just, I'm not tooting my own horn here, but the image is really good.
Go ahead, too. Yeah, that's what we're here for.
It was really good. I was just really blown away by it, and everyone that saw it was blown away by it too. And I even looked at other images online, what people had gotten, and quite frankly, it was not as good as mine. I just, I did such a great job. Yeah. So that would be one that I certainly would like them to leave. I'd probably appreciate if they left the Speedo pictures too, but they probably don't want those.
That's a whole nother dark nebula. That's a dark nebula.
They don't want those ones. We'll just leave those ones.
So you're going to give a speech to a bunch of people who, maybe some younger people who are kind of interested, semi-interested, maybe coming out of high school with some science background. And the whole point is you want to create an awareness that has sparked you and moved you into this passion. So, what would be some of the highlights of that speech to really inspire people to really focus on the night sky and take up this hobby?
I think in general, the mind opening awareness of the hobby comes to my mind anyways, in that it really puts a new spin on things when you look up at the night sky, when you think about what you're looking at, when you're looking into the past, and you're able to photograph nebula or galaxies and that are so far away that the light took so long to get to your eye or to your camera. It puts a whole new spin on everyday life. That's what the hobby did for me anyways. It made me realize how insignificant, how small some of the concerns that we have in life are. People getting upset when their coffee order is wrong or something like that, and it's like, it's really not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of the universe if you think about it, right? And that the hobby has certainly done that for me. It's opened my eyes to that, so that I'm not really I'm not getting caught up in some of the trivial things that people get caught up in everyday life. And it's really had an impact on me, to the point that I actually, when I see constellations and the fall coming back, winter constellations coming back and stuff like that, it sort of feels, I have such a connection with the night sky now that it feels like old friends, returning and visiting again, and I really get excited about it, and just seeing the transitions and whatnot. So I think if you get out under a dark sky, you can't really do it from the city. It just doesn't work. But if you get those people out into a dark site and you start showing them what's there, what they can see, and having them think about what they're looking at, and it starts to spark a lot of things in people's minds. Even simple things like, showing people the moon, the craters on the moon, or showing them Saturn. Seeing Saturn through a telescope with the rings for the first time is very captivating. A lot of people that I, back in, years ago when I did some outreach and stuff with star parties, showing them things like this was just mind blowing to them. They were just, they couldn't believe what they were looking at. They questioned whether it was real even. Is this real? Am I actually looking at it? Yeah, you're actually looking at another planet in our solar system. So I think getting, I think, you know, if more people were attuned to the night sky, if more people took an interest in it, I think that the world would be a very different place. It's great that we have as many people interested in the night sky and imaging it and looking at it that we do. But I think if there was more people that took the time to look up and, you know, get that, take that view in, I think that we would be seeing people act a little differently, and maybe a different world might exist. But unfortunately, that's not where we're at. But you know, it's something that I always, you know, hope that could be, and you never know, you know.
Yeah, that's why I really daydream about them eventually finding, even if it's just microbial life, on another planet.
If we
or
could
an
just
asteroid,
find,
because,
if we could find some sort of concrete evidence that, you know, here there is actually life on, you know, another, you know, body in our solar system, even, I think that would be very, very changing to the human population and the way people think.
Yeah, the first thing it does is it instantaneously makes us Earthlings.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
Earthlings, you know, of this Earth, and that's what I think we desperately need right now. And it's almost like I equate it to, if you're in your house, you probably know where every chair is and every window is, but it'd be like living in your house and only knowing where that one couch is and never knowing that there's a picture on the wall or a window or a door.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not going to live like that. So why not look up? Because it is your world. It's your world that you live in. And this hobby is definitely, and it's funny too, because I talk to people, and especially like at work, and people who work for me, and I'll show them these pictures, and then they'll get an email about somebody having an issue. Everybody's got issues, and they'll go, "Do you know that you know there's a nebula out there that's 5,000 light years away? What's your problem?" You know, they start using the stuff that I talk about to just downplay the severity of this issue that they're having.
For sure.
So what's 2023 like for you? Do you have any either gear coming up? Do you have a trip plan, an Astro? Do you have a target that you're going, a big project that you're excited about?
2023. Well, one of the projects that I want to get going is, like I said, the mobile setup, so I can actually, when we open the cottage again, it's not a year-round cottage; it's only seasonal. So when we open the cottage again, I want to be able to do more imaging up there. So I'm working towards getting that built. I'm looking at a harmonic mount. I kind of wanted the Pegasus Astro, the Nix 101. I really like that.
Yeah, I've been looking at that one
It's
too.
got a lot of good features and stuff like that. It's twice as much to some degree, roughly, as opposed to like an AM5 or something like that. So I may end up.
That's like 66 pounds, right? It's like 60
Yeah,
pounds,
it
over
can.
60
Yeah,
pound
it
capacity
can.
with a
It's got a
counterweight.
lot of. It's got a lot of. I think it's 44, if I'm not mistaken. 44 without a counterweight is what it can hold. But I'd have to look again at the specs.
Nice.
But whatever the case, like that's just incredible. Without any counterweights, like that's just mind blowing. You know. So I was like, wow, this is great. It's got a lot of nice features to it. I just it's just the price tag on it. I don't know if just looking to see if the wife is listening. I don't know if I could sell that. So I may end up, as much as I'm not a ZWO fan, I may end up with an AM5 for this project. And I've seen some, good results with it, and I've seen people that talk very highly of it too. That it just works really well. So that could be a very positive thing, especially when I'm up at the cottage in the the darkness there, and that I need something that's going to work reliably. I'm not saying that the Pegasus Astro wouldn't. It's just the AM5, for the price point, might do it a lot easier for me than spending too much money in this hobby like I already do. And sometimes I just tell the wife, I just say, oh, it's on loan or something like that. But
I got it on sale.
Yeah.
I mean, my girlfriend probably tells me the same thing. I bought two. They were on sale. Then why'd you have to buy two?
I don't know. I just did.
Yeah, it works out.
Well, that brings me to a funny story actually too, with the semi-permanent that I've got set up here at the house. I didn't actually. We got a very large and extra thick patio, concrete patio, and where I had to put the scope, just because of the trees and the rooftops and stuff like that, was really almost dead center in the patio. So
Oh, wow.
so it wasn't really going over that well with my wife, and I sort of made a little bit of a compromise. I shifted it a little bit to the one side, but when she went out the one Saturday, and that buddy came over, and we drilled into the concrete patio and bolted this pier down and filled it with sand and whatnot. And then she got home and she's like, "What the hell is this?" And it's like, nothing I can do about it now. It's bolted. I said,
just put flowers around
just
it.
do
It's
something.
fine.
That. So it's always been a little sore spot for her, even to this day. She's like, "I wish that wasn't there."
Wow.
But
yeah.
But I took I'm still alive, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Hey, we're talking. So that's all
I
good.
won.
Yeah. You won. Winner. And then you look around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Make sure she's not listening.
Hey, honestly though, I mean, seriously, I have to congratulate her, because I have my girlfriend's with me for 6 years, and she was with me when I didn't do this hobby.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I'm like kissing her on the forehead and going, "See ya.
Gotta go. It's clear."
Yeah. And so, I'll get in bed with the iPad and, and I've got, team view or something going on. I'm like, "Look at this, look what it's doing here. Look at it." And she's like, "Oh my God, I have to look at one more guide graph. Look at the error. It's like 0.4. It's 0.4. Wow. Can you believe that?" Like, yeah. Or the times when I, image something like the horse head. I remember the first time I imaged a horse head, you couldn't see it. It was there, but you couldn't see it. Yeah. And I went, "Look, it's a horse head." And there was just nothing. It was just, and she was like, "I see it." So I really have to be very appreciative to that support, because as much, like I was telling somebody the other day, if things didn't work out with us and I had to start this over and meet somebody, I would have to tell them like this is a no compromise part of my life, and if you can't support that. So you really, have to give your wife a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, she's actually very supportive of the work I do, the hobby aspect of it, but also the YouTube side of it and stuff like that. I mean, there's many nights, many evenings that she doesn't see me. I'm just busy working away, doing something, or I'm imaging and whatnot. And she's not into it like I am at all. She'll she'll say, "Oh, that's kind of neat. What is that?" Or I'll show her something on the screen that I'm imaging, and she'll be like, "Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, okay, keep going. Good job." But she's always been very supportive. So yeah, I really appreciate that.
That's good. Yeah, as long as she doesn't call it astrology. Ugh,
I know. I've had people do that. Yeah. You're an astrologer, aren't you? No, I'm not an astrologer. Please stop saying that. Yeah.
Please stop. Yeah. So last question here. This is one just to think about it. Like, okay, so Elon Musk flies in here and he says, "I've got this hyper warp drive speed ship, and you can go to any target that you've been imaging to see it and get close to it." Where in space
would I go?
Like to go?
Oh,
yeah.
Any place far away from here. It's getting pretty crazy on this planet.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we gotta leave. Yeah.
I would probably go to probably the nearest star system with known exoplanets. Realistically. Okay. That would be, I think it would be very fascinating to be able to travel to another solar system that had, planets, even a planet in the habitable zone would be interesting. And, maybe not be able to land on it or anything like that, because who knows what's there. But just to be able to see another planet outside of our solar system, in a totally different part of the galaxy would be really fascinating. Even being able to warp from one galaxy to another, that would be incredible too, right? Go visit the Andromeda galaxy, that'd be like, bizarre, but certainly be really cool to do. So I think seeing another planet in another solar system, star system, would be really fascinating for me. That's probably where I'd go. And I mean, there's so many deep sky targets, and that would be really cool to see up close. I just I wouldn't know where to begin. I'd be like a kid in a candy store to some degree. So I'd have to go. I'd have to go with the nearest star system that has the exoplanets. So
cool, very cool. Well, man, I really appreciate your time and getting to know you better, and hearing about your journey. Because starting at your age, when you did, I mean, off camera, you can't that way. I've got my Olympus OM1.
Okay.
It's just a shelf piece now.
Yep.
It still has the little flexible trigger
Yep.
lock or shutter
Yep.
lock
Yep.
on it, because that's where I
Yep.
started with film as well. So it was refreshing to kind of hear, that you went through that as well, because that's. And then I did the same thing, kind of ventured away and then got back to it.
Yeah.
So we got some pretty similar
Yeah, we
paths
do.
there. So
Yeah, that's
really
awesome.
cool.
Well, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
man.
having me on and stuff. And I certainly appreciate what you're doing. On your YouTube channel and stuff, and reaching out to people and helping them on their journey. I mean, I've watched some of your videos and that,
likewise.
and your colorized show images and whatnot. That was really fascinating to me. And seeing Luke as well. Luke came out with his rainbow, and that sort of gave me inspiration to give it a try and stuff like that. So what you're doing is really really fantastic for the astronomy community and that. And if people aren't thanking you, I'll definitely do that.
No, I do. That's really cool.
Because I hear all the crap talk about you, but I don't believe them.
Oh, I thought you were the one starting it. No,
well, you never know.
Damn it! Yeah,
it's a Steven guy. Yeah.
Oh man, well, that's funny. Well, cool, man. Well, I hope you have a good evening and good luck imaging tonight. And I super appreciate your time and love to have you back on.
Okay, yeah, anytime. Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Steven. Appreciate it.
All right, cool, very cool, man. See you later.
Okay, take care.